I never thought I would hear my own son say he wished I wasn't his mother. But when those words finally hung in the air of my own kitchen, I didn't cry. I just smiled. Let's rewind a bit. My name is Abigail Carter. I'm 64, a widow of 7 years, and I like my life quiet. 6 months ago, my son Liam and his wife Sarah asked to move into my 4-bedroom house in the Chicago suburbs. They wanted to save for a down payment on their own place. I agreed, assuming they needed a temporary safety net. I didn't realize I was inviting in a hostile takeover. It started with small things. Sarah complained about the smell of my morning coffee. Liam left his muddy shoes on my Persian rug. Then, the grocery bills doubled. I had given Liam an authorized user card on my credit account years ago for college emergencies. Suddenly, that card was paying for Sarah's organic matcha powder premium steaks and Liam's golf club memberships. I didn't yell. I simply started buying my own groceries and keeping them in a mini fridge I installed in my room. When Sarah opened the main fridge and found it empty of her favorite expensive snacks, she marched into the living room. "Abigail, we are completely out of almond milk and truffles." She crossed her arms, tapping her foot. I turned the page of my book, keeping my eyes on the text. "The grocery store is open until 9. Liam's card declined at the gas station earlier." She huffed. "Did you freeze it?" "I lowered the limit," I replied evenly. "Emergencies only. Truffles aren't an emergency." Her face turned red. She spun around and stomped upstairs. I knew a storm was coming, but I wasn't afraid of the rain. I just wondered how long it would take for Liam to come down and try to fight his wife's battles. Liam stormed down the stairs 20 minutes later, clutching his phone. At 32, he still had the same pout he used when he was 5 and denied a toy. But this time, he wasn't asking for a toy. He was demanding access to my retirement savings. "What is this about a limit?" He shoved his phone toward my face, showing the banking app. "I couldn't even fill up my tank today." I took a slow sip of my tea. "You spent $400 on golf equipment on Tuesday, Liam. The emergency limit is $500 a month. You used it." He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing the living room. "Sarah is stressed. We are trying to save for a house. You know how hard the market is right now. We need a little breathing room." "Breathing room means living rent-free, which you are," I pointed out, setting my mug down. "It doesn't mean I fund your luxury lifestyle." Sarah hovered on the landing, watching us like a hawk. I could see her whispering something, egging him on. Liam's jaw tightened. "You have plenty of money, Mom. Dad left you this paid-off house and his life insurance. It's completely unfair that you hoard it while we struggle." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Your father worked 40 years for that money. It's to ensure I don't become a burden in my old age. It is not a slush fund for your hobbies. We're your family." He yelled, his face flushing dark red. "You're supposed to help us." "I gave you a roof," I answered, walking past him toward the kitchen. "The rest is up to you." I left him standing there, fuming. I knew my son. He hated being told no, and Sarah hated it even more. They were planning a massive anniversary dinner for that weekend, and I had a feeling I knew exactly which card they intended to use. By Thursday, the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Liam and Sarah barely spoke to me, which suited me fine. I spent my days gardening and reading. I didn't cook for them, and I didn't clean up the dishes they left in the sink. If they wanted to act like spoiled roommates, they could live in their own mess. That afternoon, I found Sarah in the kitchen, sorting through a pile of dry cleaning. She wore a smug expression. "Liam booked Le Petit Chateau for our anniversary Saturday night," she announced, not looking up. "It's a tasting menu, very exclusive." Le Petit Chateau was the most expensive restaurant in the city. Dinner for two easily ran over $600. Happy anniversary. I offered, lightly wiping down my side of the counter. We'll need you to watch Buster. She pointed to their untrained golden retriever who was currently chewing on a couch cushion in the next room. We leave at 6. Make sure he doesn't destroy anything. I tossed my rag into the sink. I have plans Saturday night. You'll need to crate him or hire a sitter. Sarah finally looked at me, her eyes narrowing. Plans. What plans? You never go out. That doesn't mean I'm available for free pet care. I smiled politely. Enjoy your dinner. As I walked away, I heard her aggressively dialing her phone. 10 minutes later, Liam barged through the front door, slamming it behind him. He marched straight to the back patio where I was watering my hydrangeas. You can't do this, Mom. You're trying to ruin our anniversary just to be petty. I am busy Saturday, I repeated, not stopping my watering. You're unbelievable, he scoffed. First the credit card, now this. It's like you enjoy making our lives miserable. Don't think I don't know what you're doing. He was projecting, but I let him talk. He had no idea what I was actually preparing to do. Saturday arrived with a heavy downpour. I spent the morning reorganizing my closet, completely ignoring the chaotic energy emanating from the guest bedroom. Sarah was complaining loudly about her hair, while Liam rushed around looking for his good cufflinks. Around 4 o'clock, Liam cornered me in the hallway. He looked sharp in his tailored suit, a suit I had bought him for his last birthday. Look, Mom! He crossed his arms. I called the bank. The emergency card resets today since it's the first of the month. I'm using it for dinner tonight. I looked at him calmly. That card is for emergencies, Liam. A tasting menu is not an emergency. It's our anniversary, he shouted, his patience snapping. Why are you being so cheap? Dad would be disgusted by how selfish you've become. My chest tightened, but I didn't let my expression change. Bringing my late husband into his temper tantrum was a low blow. Your father would be disappointed that his 32-year-old son still expects his mother to pay for his dates, I corrected gently. Liam's eyes went dark. The entitlement had completely consumed whatever was left of the sweet boy I had raised. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. Oh, you know what? I wished you'd never been my mother. Dad was the only good thing about this family, and you're just a miserable old woman trying to drag everyone down with you. He expected me to gasp. He expected tears, apologies, or a desperate plea for his love. Instead, I looked him dead in the eyes, and I just smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but a cold, final realization. Have a good evening, Liam, I whispered. I stepped around him, walked into my bedroom, and locked the door. I heard him huff and march down the stairs. The front door slammed violently. I didn't cry. My mourning for the son I thought I had ended right then. Now it was time for action. The house fell completely silent once their car pulled out of the driveway. Buster the dog whined downstairs, but I left him in his crate. I walked over to my bedside table, picked up my iPad, and sat in my favorite armchair. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't pack their bags and throw them on the lawn. I simply opened my banking application. I navigated to the credit card dashboard. There it was, Liam Carter, authorized user. For years, I had left it active out of guilt, habit, and a mother's blind hope that he would only use it when he truly needed help. A flat tire, a medical copay. But he had weaponized my safety net to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford all, while disrespecting the roof over his head. I wished you'd never been my mother. The words echoed in my mind, but they didn't sting anymore. They were liberating. If I wasn't acting as his mother, I certainly didn't need to act as his bank. I clicked on his name. The screen prompted, "Remove authorized user." This action will immediately deactivate the card. I tapped, "Confirm." The screen refreshed. His name disappeared. Just like that, the financial umbilical cord was cut. I didn't stop there. I opened my internet provider's app and paused the Wi-Fi connection to Liam's laptop, Sarah's iPad, and both of their smart TVs. I logged into my streaming accounts and selected Sign out of all devices, changing the password. I set the iPad down and took a deep breath. For the first time in 6 months, the air in my home felt clean. I made myself a cup of Earl Grey tea, turned on a jazz record, and opened a new mystery novel. I glanced at the clock. It was 6:30. They would be sitting down for their appetizers right about now. The main course was coming, and I wasn't talking about the food. At exactly 8:45, my phone began to buzz on the coffee table. The caller ID flashed Liam's face. I let it ring. It stopped, then immediately started vibrating again. After the 4th missed call, a text message popped up. "Mom, pick up. Now." I took another sip of my tea, savoring the bergamot flavor, and finally slid my finger across the screen to accept the 5th call. "Hello," I answered, keeping my tone perfectly conversational. "What did you do?" Liam's voice was a frantic hiss. I could hear the clinking of fine silverware and the soft murmur of background music. He was whispering forcefully, clearly, trying not to make a scene in the elegant dining room. "I'm drinking tea, Liam. What are you doing?" My card declined. "The waiter has tried it 3 times. It says the account is invalid. Did you lock it?" He sounded desperate. "Oh, I didn't lock it," I replied smoothly. "I canceled it. You are no longer an authorized user on my account." Dead silence on the other end. I could almost picture the blood draining from his face. You canceled it," he stammered. "Mom, the bill is nearly $700. We already ate. We don't have this in our checking account." "That sounds like a very stressful situation," I observed calmly. "You have to turn it back on right now. Sarah is freaking out in the bathroom. They're going to call the police." "I can't turn it back on. It's permanently closed," I informed him. "Besides, you made it very clear earlier today that you wished I wasn't your mother. A stranger wouldn't pay for your luxury dinner, Liam. You'll have to wash dishes, or perhaps call Sarah's parents." "Mom, please don't do this to me. Happy anniversary." I whispered and pressed the red button to end the call. I switched my phone to airplane mode, tucked my legs under a blanket, and went back to my book. I was fast asleep when the front door slammed open at midnight. Heavy footsteps stomped up the stairs. I had already locked my bedroom door, a simple twist of a brass lock, but it kept the chaos outside. Fists pounded on the wood. "Abigail, open this door right now." It was Sarah, her voice shrill and shaking with rage. I turned on my bedside lamp, slipped on my robe, and walked to the door. I opened it just a crack, keeping my foot wedged behind it. Liam looked like he had aged 5 years in 3 hours. His tie was undone and he was sweating. Sarah's makeup was smudged. "You embarrassed us," Sarah screeched. "We had to beg the manager to let us leave my watch as collateral while Liam called a friend for a loan. How could you be so evil?" "Keep your voice down in my house," I warned, my tone dropping to a low, dangerous register. "And you will never pound on my door again." Liam pushed forward slightly. "Mom, you humiliated me. In front of Sarah, in front of the whole restaurant." "You humiliated yourself by ordering food you couldn't afford," I corrected. "I am not responsible for your financial negligence." "We live here," Sarah spat. "You can't just cut us off without warning." I reached into the pocket of my robe and pulled out an envelope I had prepared earlier. I handed it through the crack in the door. Liam took it instinctively. "What is this?" he muttered. "That is the new household agreement," I stated flatly. Since you are independent adults who don't want a mother, you are now tenants. Rent is $1,500 a month due on the 1st. Utilities are split 50-50. If you don't like those terms, you have 30 days to find a new place. I didn't wait for their reaction. I shut the door, locked it, and went back to bed. The next morning, the kitchen was a war zone. Sarah had deliberately left pots and pans scattered across the stove, coffee spilled on the counter, and their dog's muddy paw prints all over the floor. It was a silent protest, a temper tantrum in the form of a mess. They were sitting at the dining table glaring at me as I walked in. I ignored them completely. I stepped over the mud, wiped exactly 1 square foot of counter space to prepare my toast, and made my coffee. The internet is down, Liam grumbled, staring at his laptop. I need to work. The guest network is disabled, I confirmed, taking a bite of toast. So turn it back on, Sarah snapped. The Wi-Fi is a utility, I explained calmly. As stated in the agreement I handed you last night, utilities are split. Once you pay your half for this month, $75, I will gladly provide the new password. Liam stared at me, his mouth slightly open. You're charging us for Wi-Fi, Mom. This is ridiculous. We're family. Yesterday, I was a miserable old woman dragging you down, I reminded him without missing a beat. Today, I am a landlord. Landlords require payment. Sarah stood up her chair, scraping loudly against the floor. You are toxic. We are trying to save money. We can't afford $1,500 a month in rent right now. Then you cannot afford to live in a 4-bedroom house, I replied, washing my single plate in the sink. I suggest you look for a 1-bedroom apartment. There are several affordable options on the east side of town. I dried my hands, picked up my coffee, and headed toward the back door to enjoy my garden. You can't do this to us, Liam called out, his voice cracking. I already did, I answered, stepping out into the morning sun and closing the door behind me. Over the next 2 weeks, the reality of their situation set in. I didn't argue with them. I simply stopped being a convenience. When Sarah brought her laundry down, she found the machines unplugged with a padlock on the outlet box. I had installed it myself. The local laundromat was 3 miles away. When Liam tried to park his car in the garage, he found my car parked dead center, leaving no room. He had to park on the street under the oak tree that dropped sap all over his windshield. They tried to play a game of chicken with the groceries, assuming I would eventually buy toilet paper and dish soap for the main bathrooms. Instead, I kept my supplies locked in my bedroom and let them run out. By day 14, the house was unbearable for them. The luxury they felt entitled to was gone, replaced by the cold, hard reality of independence. One evening, I found Liam sitting alone on the front porch. He looked exhausted. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit. He wore an old college t-shirt. Sarah wants to leave, he mumbled as I walked past him to check the mail. She found an apartment. It's tiny. No yard for Buster. That sounds practical, I commented, sorting through the envelopes. He looked up at me, his eyes red. Why are you doing this? Mom? Do you really hate me that much? I stopped and looked down at the boy I had raised. I don't hate you, Liam, but I love myself enough to stop letting you disrespect me. You wanted all the benefits of an adult with none of the responsibilities. I just fixed the imbalance. He swallowed hard, looking back down at his hands. He had no argument left. The anger had burned out, leaving only the reality of his own choices. He didn't apologize, but I didn't need him to. The truth was already loud enough. They moved out on a Tuesday afternoon. There were no emotional goodbyes. Sarah hauled boxes into a rented van, refusing to look in my direction. Liam carried the last load, pausing by the kitchen counter where I was reading the newspaper. He placed his house key on the granite surface. The metal clinked softly. "We're gone," he announced quietly. "Drive safely." I replied, not looking up from my article. He lingered for a moment, perhaps hoping for a tearful reconciliation, a check to help with their deposit, or a plea to stay. When none came, he turned and walked out the door. The heavy oak door clicked shut behind him. I waited until the sound of their engine faded down the street. Then I stood up, walked to the front door, and locked it. An hour later, a locksmith I had hired days in advance arrived and changed every lock on the house. It wasn't out of fear. It was a physical manifestation of my new boundary. That evening, I ordered sushi just for myself. I sat in the middle of my clean, quiet living room. There were no muddy paw prints, no complaints about the television volume, and no one demanding my money. I didn't lose a son. I returned him to the real world. A mother's job isn't to shield her grown children from the consequences of their arrogance. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them fall. I poured myself a glass of crisp white wine, raised it to the empty room, and took a sip. My house was mine again. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely at peace. Looking back, the biggest lesson I learned from all of this isn't about money or rent. It's about the fine line between helping and enabling. As parents, we are wired to protect our children, but when we shield grown adults from the consequences of their own choices, we actually stop them from growing up. Setting a boundary doesn't mean you've stopped loving your family. It just means you love and respect yourself enough not to be treated like a doormat in your own home. True peace isn't something you can beg for or argue into existence. Sometimes it's something you just have to silently enforce through your actions. Have you ever had to set a tough boundary with a family member who mistook your kindness for weakness? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences, so please share your thoughts down in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about finding your voice, protecting your peace, and taking back control of your life. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.